Squint.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
The Springboks. I know, it's the Springboks. If I'm asking who has the best scrum in the world, you, me, the comment section below, all know it's the Springboks. Last year, they won a second straight World Cup, eating off a plate handed to them by a tight five that can't be stopped, served with no salad whatsoever. The Springboks have the best scrum in the world. It's a widely accepted fact. And yet, here's the thing, do they? Scrummaging is a complex art, one I'm still fresh to understanding, and as such, labelling anything the best scrum in the world is a pretty messy process in itself. Yes, our common perception, our eyes, our heads, our gut feeling tells us it's the Springboks, but I think the question deserves more investigation than that if we're to truly understand whether or not the Boks really do have the best scrum. Because the thing is, do they? Whilst it's a critically important part of the game, in the early days of rugby, and indeed the modern days of the Pro Day, the scrum truly was everything. Matches pretty much just comprised of scrums and kicking the ball into positions to have more. No, Austin, it's okay. You don't have to say it. It's okay. We get it. In those days, the scrum took most of the game. Stay there, Austin, it's fine. Teams would look to keep the ball in the scrum and shove the opposition back. Some teams would dribble it at their feet, keeping it in the scrum, kind of number 8 style, to try and make up all 100 metres in one go. Others would try and reverse hook it and punt it out long through the scrum, push it straight ahead, almost table football style. Teams of 20 players would chuck most of their lads in and just hope for some violence. Once again, not unlike the Pro Day done now. However, in the years since, a lot has changed. While scrum standardised after the IRB banned Canada's trademark 10-man scrum in the 80s, one thing has remained from those early days, even right to now, and outside the French lower divisions. And that's the fact that how you use your scrum, more often than not, reflects, decides, and defines how your team plays the game. Because here's the thing, if you trust the stats, and because I don't want Sam Long to break any more of my fingers, let's say I do, there's a clear winner of this contest, a side with the best scrum in the world this season by a head, one that's head and shoulders above the rest, by such a long margin, statistically the best scrum in the world. And it's one I don't think any of you had guessed. It's the Fijian Drua. The Drua this season have a remarkable 99.2% success rate on their own scrum. This is not just the best in any pro league this season. There's a pretty decent chance it's an all-time world record. It's certainly better than any other rate I could find going back through as many years of these statistics archived as I could find. With the regular season now all but concluded, the Drua have lost just one scrum on their own put-in all year. Maybe in the days of the 20-man shove, a few of them may have matched this, but in the modern game, the Drua are unbelievable. It's an incredible record, and yet one born out of who they are as a team and how they play. It's a scrum that reflects, decides, and defines the tactics that they use to approach the game. The clue is in the name. The Fijian Drua play Fijian-style rugby, the gorgeous, ambitious, sevens-flavoured antics that have captivated generations of Fijian fans now. And so, the scrum takes on a different significance to a team like the Springboks. When you set for a scrum, thanks to that pesky Canada ending the ambiguity, the opposition have no choice but to put 8 forwards in, committed. And that gives you chances to attack. 8 defenders taken out of the main line. Sometimes that's simple, like Penny Matawalu here, sniping from the base to score, but more frequently it's stuff like this. The Waratahs have numbered up 2-on-2, so Lamani flashes around blindside to join his 2 teammates, drawing the only forward able to break off, with those 2 backs having now drifted to watch the numbers working round, allowing the scrum half to put Vata straight through, who in turn puts Marcy over and into the corner to finish. For the Fijian Drua, the scrum is a means to reset the game. The ball goes in, the ball comes out, and the backs then have a chance to attack against a depleted defensive line. The faster the ball is in, the faster the ball is out, the less opportunity an opposition flanker has to break off, and hence the fewer players you have in your face, and the better chances you have to score a try from it. Because here's the thing, if you view the scrum as a means to launch an attack, it's not the Springboks, but the Fijian Drua who have the best scrum in the world. And it's not even close. It's something we can see across the top leagues. The teams with the best scrum completion rates, the teams who win the greatest percentage of their own scrums, are, across the board, attack-oriented teams. In the Premiership, it's Harlequins followed by Gloucester. In the URC, it's the Lions followed by Cardiff. In the top 14, it's Racing followed by Bordeaux. These are teams who want to attack, not engage in 1800s-style shove-offs. So get the ball in, get the ball out, and play Fijian-style rugby. The same applies at international level. Fiji's national team emulates their club counterparts' scrum tactics at the last World Cup, finishing the tournament as the second most efficient scrum out there. Exactly the same tactics in effect. Ball goes in, ball comes out, semi-Randrandra goes in your face, Fiji probably score a try. In third place, however, were Japan, playing a really similar tactic, looking to explode off the scrum, but where Fiji went all in when the forwards were otherwise engaged, using strike plays to try and catch players out and attack only the backs. Japan used it instead as a launch pad. The Blossoms had the highest first phase gainline success of any team in the tournament, breaking off and instantly looking to hit a defence not yet set to apply line speed. Where Fiji's attack prioritised big, skillful sudden plays, Japan's entire game model was built around long, multi-phase stretches of possession in attack. They were the team in the tournament most likely to score if they got beyond 6 phases. And so, instead of an opportunity to attack a depleted defence, a la the Flying Fijians, the Blossom Boys used the scrum as a launch pad, a means of getting gainline ball to kickstart longer, more involved sequences of attack. This fluidity all comes from the scrum, but it's actually inspired by something much more unlikely. Squarespace. Michael Leach took just one look at Squarespace's new fluid engine and knew this was it. Creating a website so fresh, so easy, so simple, Leach had already created his own website in mere minutes, mere moments even. Yet every page he added on just made it better and better, a more detailed and better website, adding features constantly, just like phases in the Japanese attack. Yet all of it was built off an unshakable, rock-solid foundation of that engine replicated in Japan's Scrum. Able to add videos, pictures, forms, mailing lists, members areas, which represent chips over the top and cross kicks and Fakatava doing this. Before Leach knew it, he had a gorgeous website and a tactic integrating the Scrum into Japan's game. And if you want to do the same, be it tactic building or particularly website building, you can head to the link in the description and use the offer code SquidRugby to save yourself some money. The number one most efficient scrum at the World Cup, however, was Wales with 97%. It's so easy to feel Wales were good in the World Cup. It's so weird that pool stage happened. Playing archetypal Warren ball, Cymru's game plan was not attack-based, but all about fitness. They backed themselves to work harder and be fitter than any other team in the tournament to get the ball in and out quickly to increase the opposition's fatigue. They did the same thing with line-up ball as well. Every second the ball was in a scrum was a second 8 of the opposition's players weren't running, so Wales recycled it quick to get them on their feet and jogging about, chasing back after kicks that were put in, jogging sideways to get to the ruck, build that fatigue and look to go clear then in the final 50 minutes once they'd wore them down. Cymru were the only side at the World Cup to not concede a single scrum penalty, and as such, if you're playing a Warren ball style set of tactics where you want to tire the opposition through keeping the ball constantly moving, be it onwards from a kick or wide in attack, Wales last year, and I recognise an awful lot has changed in the last 12 months, had the best scrum in the world. It was a scrum designed to do nothing other than knacker the opposition pack, and it did it. Obviously, losing their 2 frontline tight heads, especially Tom Francis, who is one of the best props in the game at just absorbing opposition pressure and not going backwards, even if he's not necessarily brilliant at going forwards, saw their stats dip drastically in the Six Nations, but for the duration where it mattered most, during the World Cup, they had the best scrum possible for a team with their game plan. However, whilst the Fijian driller gave themselves a brilliant platform to strike off, whilst Japan allowed themselves to get pace and momentum in the game, and whilst Wales tired their opponents, none of them dominated. In fact, the Fijian driller are the team of all 52 clubs in the top 14 URC, Premiership and Super Rugby this season who won the third fewest scrum penalties behind only the Waratahs and the Scarlets. Because what's the point in playing lovely attacking rugby when instead you have the option to kill everything? The teams we tend to think of as the best scrummers in the world are those who use that restart as a weapon. If a pack can get a decent nudge on and hence force a penalty, they can make 20, 30, even 50 metres without making a single pass. Rugby is a simple game. It's about getting far enough up the field that you can dot a bunch of rubber down on the right bit of the floor or do a punt through the bloody poles. And there's plenty of teams out there who argue that winning penalties at scrum time gives you a better chance to do that, to get into positions to score those points, than opening it up for your backs to attack ever could. In the international game, the best team at forcing penalties from an opposition over the last year has been England. This year's Six Nations, they converted 38% of their own scrums into an arm out, whistle to lips, advantage, oh no, penalty given, call. Italy followed in second with 31%. However, their retention rate, the percentage of their scrums they won on their own ball, are 85% and 82% respectively, the two lowest of a non-Wales team in this year's Six Nations, success rates that would have put them in the bottom 5 at the World Cup. This isn't a coincidence. If your team is scrumming for a penalty constantly all match, no matter how good your scrum is, you're running a risk. If the ball is in and out quickly in the modern game, no referee is going to call them back for a penalty for or against you. However, the longer you keep the ball in, the longer you try to assert your dominance and force the opposition into that illegal position and win that penalty, the greater the odds of the referee getting involved become. And the moment the referee gets involved, the game is no longer in your own hands. Here, if they're seemingly dominating France, yet the penalty goes against them because the ref had to make a 50-50 call about how they got into position to dominate on the fly, and they figure they did it illegally. It goes against them. Most refs do favour the team going forwards, just a natural inbuilt bias we'll have as rugby fans, which, believe it or not, referees are, but it's never going to go 100% your way. As such, clubs who like to use their scrum as a weapon, the Stormers and Ospreys in the URC, Exeter and Falcons in the Premiership, Blues and Rebels in Super Rugby, Stad and Toulon in the top 14, all have bizarrely high stats for scrum penalties against them. Stad are third this season in the 52-team chart for both scrum penalties won and conceded. It doesn't sound like it makes sense. Surely your scrum should either be good or bad, but every time you look for that pen, every time you look to try and squeeze the opposition out of it, every time you ask the referee for a reward, you run the risk they'll make that call against you instead of for you. Because it can work both ways. Can you guess which team in the world has the lowest rate of scrum penalties against them? It's much easier this time. It's the Fijian Drua again. Just one scrum pen against them all season. It's become a risk-reward decision for a coach, and hence one dictated by a game plan. If you want to play a tight game, slowly marching up the pitch with forward pressure, England have the best scrum in the world. They just accept they'll have to take the rough with the smooth sometimes on that journey. And yet, all of this just makes this simple, bold question in the title louder. If you're to ignore game plan, approach, philosophy, and just be objective, scientific, comprehensive, which team of the whole lot, club, international, whatever, in the world has the best scrum out there? Well, in the club game, the Blues, Auckland, not Cardiff or Bedford, this season have the best penalties won to penalties conceded rate, yet the completion rate is the second worst in Super Rugby to only the Brumbies. Gloucester have the best scrum completion to penalties won rate, so I guess it could be their year. The Stormers won a pretty low, just 80% of their own scrums this season, yet more than half of those resulted in penalties their way. If the ball gets in and out of the scrum for the Stormers, there's a more than 50% chance they're going to get a penalty. The Crusaders, like the Drua, have been penalised just once all season, which has kept those plucky underdogs in games. Ospreys have Reece Henry, so you know that surely puts them in contention to be one of the best scrums out there. But at the end of the day, these are all just stats or bias on sheer sexiness. In order to get some sort of sense of who truly has the best scrum in the world, we have to look at context. South Africa, the team we all assume have the best scrum in the world, were ranked 4th for number of penalties eked out at the scrum last year, and 8th for likelihood to eke one out on an average scrum, behind Fiji and Uruguay. Yet, you kind of have to look at more than just the stats, because South Africa have a reputation. If you look over that full World Cup campaign, on virtually every scrum they faced, the opposition stayed down. They kept the full 8 in, scrumming until the ball is out or they are dead, whichever one comes first. Don't say it, Austin! And this makes milking scrum penalties much more difficult. Every ounce of effort is going in constantly from the opposition, and hence the Boks are always facing the best version of the opposition scrum on every single ball. And yet, the Boks finished the World Cup with a 92% scrum completion rate, still extremely high, with around 3/4 of referee calls at the set piece going their way. South Africa, New Zealand, Ireland and Wales all had pretty good splits. Decent scrum penalties won, low scrum penalties conceded, success rates above 90%. But only one team won the Rugby World Cup. And that was obviously Portugal. Okay, so maybe 2 did. South Africa's scrum was less likely to win a scrum penalty than Uruguay or Fiji, but look at the scrum penalties they did win. Every single ounce of opposition effort is going in here, but not a drop of Bok output is wasted. We're talking critical shoves as France are getting on top, late pens to keep them in control, vital demolitions to escape their own line, incredible smashes for penalties to put them into the final, and a shove that earns them early points in that most vital of games, the biggest game in the world calendar. South Africa's scrum isn't infallible, but when it counts, it's the unit you'd want the most. The one that works best under pressure. The one you introduce context works better than any other scrum. It sounds like an obvious question, and whilst there's so much to answer, consider, and weigh up within pondering who has the best scrum in the world in the game of rugby union, the game of rugby league, it's very simple, it's all of them. An entire game plan sits on it, builds on it, and works or snaps because of it. Scrummaging is a complex art, and naming any pack the best scrummagers in the world is a complicated, messy process, but one worth thinking on, asking about, and celebrating. Though, it probably is the Springboks. Thanks for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it.
So do I!
Superb. We've got another video with Tom Harrison, the England scrum coach, going into scrums and how to understand scrums. So please go and have a look at that. That's a fantastic kind of resource. We want to do more on scrums and on set piece generally on the channel. We've got a follow-up to that, hopefully happening soon enough, perhaps on another set piece. We'll see how that goes. And also coming up in the next week, we have a look at the All Blacks.
Yeah, we're looking at that weird breakdancing man who did things with the Crusaders, or however you say their name, in Super Rugby, and how we think they might play with the New Zealand national rugby team.
And then we head into the July internationals, so we're going to look at... Well, I mean, we'll see how the games go. But, you know, you've got the Ireland South Africa series, you've got the England New Zealand series as the big headliners. You've got plenty as well. We've also got another thing, hopefully next week-ish, that will allow us to perhaps look at some more games. So we'll see you very soon for more
Rugby Union.
I love scrums.
So do I now. Yeah.
Talk to him.